forward, follow me. If I hesitate, push me. If I may kill me, avenge me. If I am a traitor, kill me.
Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock. On a mission, each one of us shares our own vision. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. While I patrolled the streets, all the G's on me. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. While I patrolled the streets, all the G's on me.
Saludos, this is your host, Gabe Morales. This will be the final episode under the M last names. I'll start off with Manuel Bobo, aka Wizard, aka Flaco Montelongo. He was out of Mendocino County and was an NF member in the 1970s under B number 55838. Understand that he was active in NF politics and carried the mensaje or huilo from Black Bob to Corny Tristan from Woodland and Papi Reina from the Chino Sinners to have Arturo, a.k.a. Tuli, a.k.a. T-Bone Lozoya killed at DVI on October 10th, 1981. It was for that case and other activities that Bobo was indicted on the RICO case in 1982 with multiple NF members under the Bobo Sosa Death Row Joe regime, as well as some that operated under Black Bob when he was considered an NF captain. As many of you know, Black Bob ended up impeaching Bobo and Death Row Joe and basically became the coach or organizer of the new NF Constitution, which created a mesa as opposed to a one-man Nuestra Familia of Bobo Sosa, or you could say a two-man show of him and Death Row Joe. I show that Bobo was sent to the BOP under number 80504-011, and I show was released in early 1985 and disappeared from my radar. There was Martin Jose, a.k.a. Cyclone, a.k.a. Little Gangster Montoya, who I show was a Nuestra Raza supporter in the 1990s under K number 41267. Understand that he put in a lot of work and was sent to the BOP after Operation Knockout with BOP number 13342-111. Understand that he got 19 years for that conviction and was considered NF at that time. He's released from the BOP in December 2011. I then understand he was incarcerated at the Santa Clara County Jail, where he was considered a shot caller in 2012. He then was returned to the BOP in 2013 when he was housed at Pollock, where he was incarcerated for many years. I believe then he was transferred to USP Florence High Security Facility in the year 2023, where he is still housed. He is not scheduled for release until September 2026. His brother, Philip, aka Big Gangster Montoya, was also active with the Nuestra Raza in the 1990s under K number 4834. Understand that he reported directly to Cornelio Corny Tristan. I show that he was housed at Pelican Bay in the year 2000, but had parole by the year 2012, and I'm unsure what Gangster has been up to lately. There was Raymond, a.k.a. Huito Montoya, out of San Juan. I show that he was Nuestra Familia in the late 1970s with B number 87823, but was only validated as such in the year 1997 when he had K number 52431. I believe he was housed at the San Diego County Jail, don't quote me on that, in the year 2000. As you may recall, Bobo Sosa had a direct connection in the San Diego-Tijuana border area back in the 1970s. And the NF has got to get their dope from somewhere. As stated before, the drug cartels don't care down in Mexico if you're Mexican Mafia or Nuestra Familia. They just care if you have money and can move their product. But while my law enforcement peers tell me there still has been NF and ensoldados seen going through Southern California, they usually keep a very low profile, as for many years it would be a hit on sight for them by the Sureños. I showed that he came back into custody with an A number as an apple. K is in King, 5352, but had been listed as a dropout by that time. There was Thomas Pollo Montoya, who was originally out of Denver, Colorado, but later on moved to Oakland by at least the 1960s, when he was housed at San Quentin and was affiliated with the Blooming Flower, Nuestra Familia Mexicana, when he had B number 4728. Was an active participant in the shoe war and is said to have been involved in the killing of Cricket Gallegos on September 15, 1968, at San Quentin, but had been listed as a dropout by at least the year 1976, and I believe returned back to Colorado. There was a Daniel Bumpers Moore out of Santa Bruta, aka Santa Barbara, the same town that Babo was originally from. I showed that he was Nuestra Familia in the late 1970s and was active at DVI under the Babo Sosa faction, but I believe left the organization when Babo fell from power in the early 1980s. Last I checked, Bumpers was still alive. If you are, sir, I'd love to hear what else you have to say about your career with the NF. There was James Tibbs Morado Contreras out of Hanford. I show he was NF by at least 1978 under B number 86824. And I was told one of his sponsors was Sundown, who recently passed. He was validated as being NF by CDC in 1979 when he was housed at Soledad. Tibbs was short for Tiberius Caesar, and like the Roman ruler, he was known for being very smart and intelligent. He ended up rising through the ranks until he acquired the rank of being general on the overall governing body. I believe he was assigned to the governor's advocate's office, which is sort of like a court that investigates complaints by NF members and is supposed to be impartial, which, by all accounts, Tibbs was. In fact, that may have led to his downfall, as I'll describe here shortly. I had him at New Folsom Beef Facility in early 1987, after which I believe he was housed at Corcoran when it opened in 1988. He then was moved to Pelican Bay shortly after it opened, and like I said, rose to the rank of general. He then was indicted on the 2001 Operation Black Widow case and assigned BOP number 02846-748. He then was housed at the ADX for many years with the other major NF leaders. Tibbs had a young girlfriend who was much younger than him. He'd been introduced to Crystal Nenke by Bubba Hanaran, and pretty soon Crystal came to visit him many times and corresponded by mail and phone calls. And eventually they married. But the 57-year-old Tibbs became increasingly upset with his young wife, as according to him and the other carnales, she was not taking care of business when she would come into the Santa Rita jail. She was approximately 37 years younger than him and very beautiful by all accounts, however, evidently expendable. And she was killed, many say, by the NF in 2005. And I don't believe that case has ever been solved. Tibbs had a couple things going against him. One thing, I understand that he had been talking about converting to Muslim, and he had some concerns about the federal and state NF split. According to my sources, Tibbs believed that there should only be one NF and that mess all could be sorted out. This did not go over well with Corny Tristan in particular, and one of his main supporters, Skip Villanueva. And I believe that Pinky went along with voting him out. And even though he had put in years, decades of dedication to the NF, he was moved to USP McCurry in 2021 and hit by Quete Rubalcaba in May of that year, which he survived physically, but I'm not sure spiritually or mentally, and he died a few months later. There was Anthony Chino Morales out of Visa. I showed that he was Northern Structure in the 1990s. He continued to put in work for the organization and was indicted under Operation Black Widow on a RICO case in the year 2001 when he was at DVI. I believe he continued to do his CDC time until October 2006, and I believe then was sent to do his BOP time. Understand that he was in communication during this time with Bobby Summit Lopez, who was at San Quentin Death Row at that time. I then show that Chino was released in October 2009, and I believe disassociated himself from the organization. There was a David Morales, no relation to me, out of San Fran. He was an En Soldado with B number, as in Bravo, C as in Charles, 3799. I showed that he entered CDC in March of 2017 and then was involved in the homicide of Christian Lepe, who I covered a few episodes back, on February 1st, 2021 at High Desert State Prison, where he is still housed. There was Reynaldo, a.k.a. Nene Morales, out of San Juan. He was a Puerto Rican and active with the NF in the early 1970s under B number 26523. Understand that he was a tier tender at DVI in 1973 and was considered to be a lieutenant there by 1975, but dropped out around the year 1976. Understand he came back into custody in the 1990s with E numbers in Edward 38011. But I'm unsure what happened to him. Donald Duck Moran out of Salos, but also had ties to San Francisco. I showed that he was Nuestra Raza in the mid-1990s under J number 20212. I then showed that he was housed at Pelican Bay in the year 2006, but had paroled by 2007. Understand that he was returned to Pelican Bay and housed in the SHU from 2012 to at least 2016. When they let most of the prison gang members out of the security housing units, Moran was moved to Salinas Valley State Prison and was considered to be part of the federal faction when he defended Matt Rocha when he was attacked at Salinas Valley State Prison in the year 2020. Understand then he was moved to CMC where he is currently housed. There is Pablo Cricket Moran Lozano out of San Juan. I believe he was related to the Lozanos that I mentioned previously in part 2 of the L last names. Cricket escaped from the Santa Clara County Juvenile Facility in the summer of 1978. He then was sent to the California Youth Authority, but caught an assault charge there in 1979. Understand then he was involved in a drive-by shooting in May of 1983, which got him CDC number C as in Charlie 87146. He then was housed at Soledad in 1984, as well as San Quentin in 1985, when he was caught with some shanks. He remained active at San Quentin in the late 1980s, and I first met Cricket in the early 1990s at New Folsom Violence Control Unit. He had several parole violations throughout the 1990s, and I understand got another drive-by shooting charge in April 1999. He then was housed at San Quentin in the year 2000, but paroled in 2001. Understand that he got a DV charge and returned to San Quentin. He then was housed at DVI in 2003, as well as did some time at the Santa Clara County Jail. He then was housed at San Quentin in year 2004, and last I heard, he was at Kern Valley State Prison in 2012, when I lost track of him. There was Isidro, a.k.a. Chilo Moreno, out of San Juan. I show he was active with the Nuestra Raza in the mid-1990s, under H numbers in Henry 60828. I believe then he was released by 1997, but returned to Corcoran in 1998, at which time he was considered to be NF. I believe he was out of custody by the year 2022, and I'm unsure of his current status. There was Rudy, a.k.a. Nairo Moreno, who I believe was either out of San Juan or Salas. I showed that he was a Nuestra Raza in the 1990s, under P number 82001, and was validated as such in 1998. Understand then he was released out to the streets and was involved in the 187 of Beto Avila, who had failed to wipe down the vehicle used in the Brown Bob Viramontes hit. Avila was killed shortly after that went down in May of 1999. I then show that Night Owl was housed at Pelican Bay SHU in the year 2012, but I lost track of him after that. I mentioned another guy from Clanton a few episodes back and asked if you guys remembered who else was from Clanton. Did you get it right? Gilbert Bruce, a.k.a. Güero Morgan, was one of the original NF members when the Nuestra Familia Mexicana, or Blooming Flower, took root in CDC in the mid-1960s, when he had A numbers in Alpha 80425. They showed that he was active in the SHU War, but had been stabbed by the MA during at least one of those skirmishes. Also understand that he was hit on August 27th, 1972 by the Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia, and I believe had dropped out by the year 1976. There was David Chipmunk Morris out of Bakers. He was active in the NF in the 1970s under B number 58913, and I understand was involved in the first Bakersfield raid to take out NFM founder Chalo Hernandez on May 29, 1977. And I believe his wife's name was Susie, who is said to have been present during that same incident. Now, I've heard some people say that he was killed in that incident, and others say only wounded. I'm not sure, but I did have one source say that he was at Folsom in 2002, which of course would mean he wasn't killed. Let me know if you know the real deal on David Chipmunk Morris. There was Miguel, aka Mike Munoz Nava, who was out of Tulare County. I show that he did YA time in 1988. And then was sent to CDC in the 1990s under J number 50665. I show that he was at least Nuestra Raza in the 1990s. I then show that he was housed in Oregon DOC in the year 2006. And before we end, I'd like to talk a little bit about making mistakes. We've all made mistakes in lives. I know I've made my share. We all have our own struggles. If we are aware of our mistakes, we may regret them, but it's mostly important to learn from them. But I know this, your life is not totally tainted by your mistakes, nor your struggles. You have within yourself the power, if you believe in God, or at least a higher power, and have faith that real change is possible to reshape your future. And with that, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians. If I go forward, follow me. If I hesitate, push me. If I may kill me, avenge me. If I am a traitor, kill me.
Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock. On a mission, each one of us shares our own vision.